Burning fat over age 50 is actually a little bit different, and there's not a lot of people out there breaking down what should be done differently. Now here's the thing, there's a lot of content out there, and I've created a lot of content surrounding burning fat and getting leaner and this and that, and all of that stuff still applies. The purpose of this video isn't to be the end-all be-all. It's to give those of you that are over 50 and really over 40 just some additional things that you should consider, because a lot of this stuff still applies to you that's out there on the internet and that you're going to read about or watch, but you need to have these little nuggets of information that you can apply that work specifically for you and your bio-individuality. Because once you're over 50, there's just hormonal shifts that occur, and you need to be able to get by with a little bit less. So the whole goal of what we do with this kind of protocol and how we change things up is to make it so that you can have less damage to your body, but do things at the right time and take the right things to allow your body to just get a little bit more out of the fat burning process. So we'll break it all down, we'll make it simple, and I'll try to make this concise for you so you can just get right down to the nitty gritty and have some fun. Hey, please make sure you do hit that red subscribe button if you haven't already, and then hit that little bell icon to turn on notifications. We've got new videos just about every single day, so you're gonna love the things that we talk about. All right, the first one that I have to talk about is for men and women, okay? So men and women both would really get a big benefit out of starting their day with apple cider vinegar. And I know I've talked about this in other videos, so if you're a subscriber of mine already, I'm sorry for repeating myself, but there's some specific things that come into play when you're over 50. You see, apple cider vinegar and the acetic acid in apple cider vinegar upregulates something known as PPAR. Now, PPAR is sort of a genetic pathway or kind of a protein pathway that allows fatty acids to get mobilized a little bit easier. You see, here's the thing. Once you're over the age of really 40, it's a little bit more difficult for fatty acids to get mobilized. They just kind of want to hang out. That's why typically once you're over 40, it's just like, why did this fat used to just burn so fast and leave, and now all of a sudden it's stuck on me? It usually has to do with PPAR downregulation. So the nice thing is, although apple cider vinegar is great for everybody, I do recommend just starting your day with a couple tablespoons and having it alongside meals whenever possible. You don't have to be a slave to this stuff. You don't have to bring it with you all the time. But if you get that extra little PPAR activation that allows fatty acid to get mobilized, it does make a huge difference. And I've talked to countless people over the age of 40 and 50 that swear by using apple cider vinegar. The other thing that it does, which is really, really important for men and women, is it elevates what's called uncoupling protein 2. So uncoupling protein 2 is a specific kind of uncoupling protein that works as sort of a radiator for heat in your body. Okay, like energy flows through the uncoupling proteins and dissipates as heat. So it's sort of a way to waste energy as to let it become heat. So it's like, heck, I wouldn't mind eating a cheeseburger and having it just get wasted as heat and not have to burn it off. See, uncoupling protein 2 essentially does that, and apple cider vinegar plays a big role in the upregulation of that. Why is this important for men and women over the age of 40 and 50? Well, it's really just because lifestyle. I mean, I hate to say it, but as we're like in the peak of our careers and as we're just kids are growing up, and it's just easy to become more sedentary. And sometimes you don't like to admit it, but the fact is you are probably more sedentary than you were in your 20s, which means that if we can upregulate uncoupling proteins, then we can make it so that our body's burning more energy just at rest. So if we have no choice but to be a little bit sedentary, you should try to change it. But if you have no choice, then you might as well burn some extra heat. And that's why apple cider vinegar taken regularly makes a big difference. There's a lot of other things I could say about apple cider vinegar as far as what's called AMP protein kinase and things like that. Essentially, it makes it so that you're less hungry and it makes it so your body just wants to burn fat. But I don't want to just wear you out with a bunch of details on apple cider vinegar. Let's go ahead and let's move into the next one. I highly recommend, and this is very, very important, that men and women over the age of 50 make a concerted effort to have their 1 or 2 cups of coffee in the morning, and then after that's done, switch over to green tea, okay? Because green tea is a very powerful, what is called phosphodiesterase inhibitor. Now that's going to make it so that throughout the course of the day, your body is sending a signal to still allow what is called CAMP, cyclic adenosine monophosphate, to be elevated, which therefore tricks your body into thinking that it needs to burn the stored fat for fuel. The CAMP is sort of the switch. When it's off, the body says, oh, okay, well, we should just store everything we consume. When the switch is on, it's like, oh, free reign to go ahead and let it be mobilized. Coffee does this, but green tea does it a little bit more. It's a stronger phosphodiesterase inhibitor, but it also has EGCG in it. Now, EGCG stands for epocalagatican 3 galate, which is just a way for me to sound smart. EGCG, you've seen everywhere, but what it basically does is it stops the breakdown of catecholamines. Now, this is really important, okay? If you do any kind of intermittent fasting, or if you do any kind of ketogenic dieting or anything like that, the large part of your fat loss is coming from the fact that your adrenaline is elevated and your catecholamines like epinephrine are elevated. We have specific things that break down adrenaline within our body. The sooner that our body tries to break it down, the sooner we lose the effect of it. We want adrenaline and epinephrine to have a long tail effect within the body because it continues to allow us to burn fat. It's the gift that keeps on giving. However, there is something known as catechol O-methyltransferase. It's the thing that stops it. It's like the guard that says, nope, adrenaline, we're going to break you down. Okay, well, here's the cool thing. EGCG from green tea disables that catechol O-methyltransferase, therefore allowing adrenaline to go a little bit more. Again, why do I say this? If you're over 50, you're not out there busting your butt all the time just working out. Maybe you are, but maybe not like you were in your 20s, right? So the point is if we can get adrenaline elevated and let it stay elevated, we continue to burn fat at rest. It's a win-win. Okay, the other really important supplement that you need to be taking is going to be vitamin D. Now, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you get vitamin D from a whole food form. Okay, so this is going to look like canned fish, sardines, anchovies, oysters. Okay, try to get them with the skin on and with the bone. I know it might sound gross, but it's going to make a big difference. Vitamin D is so powerful when it comes down to fat loss. There's some pretty powerful studies that really added up, and I'll go ahead and reference them just so you have some credibility there when it comes down to vitamin D. There's a study that was published in Clinical Diabetes. Took a look at 152 patients. Okay, now what's interesting is with these 152 patients, they found that 82% of those that were deficient in vitamin D ended up having insulin resistance. Well, funny enough, when they gave them vitamin D, that level went down to 18%. So basically, there was a huge number that were insulin resistant, but they were low in vitamin D. Once they had vitamin D, much less insulin resistance. Why is this so important, again, for people over the age of 50? When you're over the age of 50, the effects of blood sugar are immensely more powerful on your body. They do some really damaging things. Inflammation, it's going to slow down your fat loss, big time, okay? All these things matter. So when you're not able to control your blood sugar, you have this constant what's called glycation process occurring, which is taking energy away from mobilizing fat and putting energy into your immune system, which triggers you to store fat as a protective process. So we don't really want that. Now, to add insult to injury, once you're older, you don't convert sunlight into vitamin D via the skin nearly as well as you did when you were younger. You don't have as much cellular activity. Your skin gets, you would think it gets thinner and it works better, but it gets thinner and it loses some of the cellular activity. So you're not able to convert that UVB into the usable vitamin D. So you have to get it from a supplement form or ideally from your whole food form. Okay, so getting it from good quality marine sources is going to be the best way. Okay, I want to jump around to protein here for a minute because I think this is super, super critical. There's two important factors that you have to remember with protein. I'll lay them out real quick here. Number one, high omega-3 protein. Without fail, grass-fed, grass-finished. More on that in a second. Number two, as an older person, you need more protein, not less. Do not worry about your kidneys with this. There is actually evidence that shows that more protein is good for the kidneys as you get older. But let's talk about what you need in the way of protein for a second. I'm going to give some examples, and that doesn't necessarily mean that's the amount you should eat, but it gives a reference point as to how much more you should eat. Hear me out. So right now, the normal RDA, the recommended daily allowance for protein, is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. That is not a lot of protein, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, so there was a study that was published in the Journal of Post-Acute and Long-Term Care Medicine that found that people that were older needed a little bit more protein. So they recommend that if you're over 50, based on those same standards, you should consume about 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. Now, again, I'm not saying that's the amount you should consume. I personally think that 0.8 RDA is drastically low. I think it should be more like double that. Okay, the point here is that even based on that baseline standard, they claim that you should have essentially like a 30 to 35% increase in your protein. So they suggest you should go from 0.8 to 1.2. So basically, you need to increase your protein that percentage. I would recommend increasing your percentage of protein 25 to 30% if you're over 50. Okay, it's going to do a number of different things. For one, you are more susceptible to what's called sarcopenia. Your body's going to just atrophy. Okay, it's part of life, it's part of inflammation, it's part of being more sedentary. Okay, so the more protein you have, the positive nitrogen balance that is going to keep that from happening, that sarcopenia. Okay, very important. The other thing is the thermic effect of protein in and of itself. When you consume protein, it burns fat, it burns calories, okay? But it also puts on muscle, which therefore burns calories. Actually, a fun fact that was published in the journal Obesity, took a look at 12 subjects, they increased their protein 30%, and just by increasing their protein 30%, their resting energy expenditure increased between 10 and 14.6%. Okay, just by increasing their protein intake. Okay, so subbing out some of the fats or carbs for protein ended up elevating their metabolism at rest. Pretty powerful. The other fun fact is when you add about 30% of protein, it's been shown in studies that on average you end up consuming about 440 calories less, simply because of the satiating aspect. Now let's go back and touch on the omega-3 piece here really quick. If you're not getting meat that is high in omega-3s, you're getting meat that's high in omega-6s. There's nothing in between. It's one or the other, okay? So if it's not high in omega-3s, it's high in omega-6s, which are very pro-inflammatory. They trigger signals within the body to, of course, cause inflammation, which means water retention, which also means estrogen imbalances, which ultimately means fat accumulation, okay? So very, very important there that we're paying attention to this. Now, omega-3 rich foods are going to be the meats that are like grass-fed, grass-finished, or are not fed a bunch of soy and corn. Now, the fun thing that we do have to remember is that there are studies that have shown that omega-3s in our meat sources, and omega-3s in general, elevate something known as P70S6K. Now, for men and women, this means that when you have meat that is high in omega-3s, you're going to have up to 50% more protein synthesis. So after a workout, when you want that protein to actually get utilized by a muscle, you want it to synthesize more. That's the whole idea. Omega-3s trigger a hormonal activation via mTOR pathways and this P70S6K that allow us to use that protein better. If it's not high omega-3, we don't get as much protein synthesis. So it allows us to get more bang for the buck, but it allows us to get more bang for the buck with our workout too, because it means after the workout, the protein that we are taking in is more likely to be used to rebuild muscle versus just getting wasted, right? So very, very important. So based on all of that, go ahead and check out ButcherBox down below in the description. You've probably seen me talk about them in other videos. ButcherBox is an online meat delivery service. So basically you can get grass-fed, grass-finished meat delivered to your doorstep without having to go to the grocery store. And the cool thing is, I say this like literally, it is cheaper than the grocery store when it comes down to high quality grass-fed, grass-finished meat. And it's delivered directly to your doorstep. But to make things even better, if you use the link below, you can get my special discount where you're gonna save quite a few bucks too. So I highly recommend that you check them out. If you eat meat, whether it's beef, chicken, fish, scallops, whatever, you want to utilize ButcherBox and check them out. So click on their link after you watch this video and you won't be disappointed. Okay, jumping back really quick over to something that I've learned recently, and that is the world of megadosing vitamin C. As you get older, the immune system gets compromised, and that's important. Yes, we need vitamin C for the immune system, but did you know that vitamin C plays a huge role in the carnitine pathway, basically making it so that fat can get into the cell? Okay, so if we are low in vitamin C, we don't oxidize as much fat. There's a study that was published in the journal, the American College of Nutrition, that found that having adequate amounts of vitamin C compared to inadequate amounts led to a 30% higher fat oxidation rate. That's so wild. So when people were deficient in vitamin C, which by the way, it happens fast because it's water soluble, I'll talk about in a second. When people were deficient in vitamin C, they weren't oxidizing as much fat. They weren't burning, mobilizing, utilizing as much fat, 30% less. Okay, here's the thing, vitamin C is water soluble. Okay, as you get older, you've probably noticed you pee more, which means that you lose minerals, you lose water soluble vitamins. You can take some vitamin C in through your food or supplement, it's gonna go up for a minute and then it's gonna come down. Now the cool thing is with vitamin C, you can megadose it and it has powerful effects on cortisol, so it's gonna slow down the fat accumulation effects of cortisol, but also it is gonna have a little bit of a long tail life in your body. So I highly recommend taking vitamin C consistently throughout the course of the day because it is going to help support, again, what is difficult for you at this point in time, which is the mobilization of fatty acids. Now there was another study that was published in the journal Nutrition and Metabolism, took a look at 15 subjects that were had insufficient amounts of vitamin C versus 7 subjects that had good amounts of vitamin C. They put them on a treadmill and they found that those that were lower in vitamin C burned, of course, 25% less fat, oxidized 25% less fat. Now, After that, they gave them 500 milligrams of vitamin C. Guess what happened? Then they went ahead and oxidized 4 times as much fat as before. So all it took was the vitamin C to come into the equation. So this is so important to add vitamin C just into your regimen as you get older. I don't recommend that younger people do a whole lot of vitamin C. Why? Because younger people need to allow their immune system to have sort of that hormetic effect and actually learn to fight on its own. You don't have a choice as you get older. You have to sort of support your immune system and support this carnitine pathway with vitamin C. So just do it. Try to get a whole food form of vitamin C. There's different brands out there. If you need to know them, comment down below and I can reply. Okay. Now some very, very important things to remember when it comes down to fasting. Okay. I talk about intermittent fasting as a way to burn fat all the time on my channel. It's probably what I'm most noted for. Okay, it's where you go periods of time, like 16 hours without eating, and then consolidate your eating windows into a shorter period of time. So you're basically like skipping breakfast and then just eating the same amount of food, but just in a smaller block of time. If you are older, I do recommend going a little bit longer with your fasts, going 20 hours, going 24 hours. And here's the big reason why. I want you to be able to capitalize on the migration of white fat to brown fat and adipose tissue that's just around our body to visceral fat. What does that mean? Okay, we have some certain genetic cool things that happen, particularly the activation of the MIR133A pathway. What this means is that when someone fasts for over 16 hours, over 18 hours, over 20 hours, they take fat that is unsightly body fat and turn it into visceral fat, which sounds bad for a minute, but then subsequently get burned, right? So it goes from ugly adipose tissue to visceral fat to getting burned, all in a very short period of time. So it's like a staging area. Once it becomes visceral fat, they're larger adipocytes, which means that when we burn them, we lose more fat rapidly. Okay, this does some really powerful things for our body. So not only do we take unsightly fat and turn it into fuel, but we also generate more heat, which means we're going to burn more fat fasting for a longer period of time. So the point in all of this is men and women, if you're over the age of 50, longer term fasting, or longer period fasting, I should say, is going to be your friend. And I also recommend training at the end of that fast if you can. It's not always possible, but training towards the last third of your fasting window, of your fasting period, is going to be your best friend, simply because it's going to allow you to do less intense work, but get a similar effect as if you were training at a higher intensity closer to your eating window. It's called the hormetic effect. Your body's under stress at this point. So who cares if, relatively speaking, you're lifting less weight or you're pushing it a little bit less hard, right? Or it's simply because you are already stressed because you are at the end of a fast. It's already going to be difficult. So that means less damage on your joints, less damage on your cells, and more overall just benefit as far as fat loss goes. You would be foolish to not take advantage of this because the results are so amazing. You don't have to do it every day, but 2 to 3 times per week or something like that, train towards the back half of your fast because you can get by with so much less. No more beating yourself up in the gym if you don't have to. If you're over 50, come on, I don't care how big your ego is or not. Save your body for your family, for your grandkids, for whatever, so that you can be able-bodied 20 years from now. I'm going to end on one very important thing, and that's the side of hormones for a second, because I don't like to talk a whole lot about it because it's a wild area. Men, try supplementing like 9 milligrams of boron. Boron helps release testosterone in a form of what is called free testosterone. So basically, it unbinds testosterone from sex hormone binding globulin. Women, don't be afraid of estrogenic foods. Don't be afraid of foods that might boost your estrogen levels. The reason I say this is, first of all, those are a different kind of estrogen. If your body is healthy, it can metabolize a little bit of excess estrogen as long as you're taking care of your liver. Most of the time, the postmenopausal issues that happen with women are a result of big estrogen tilts and shifts, and estrogen dominance or estrogen deficiency. The reason I'm saying this is don't try to jack around with your hormones too much with that. Eat clean and take care of your liver so your liver has the ability to process the 1,7-hydroxyestradiol, the excess estrogens, and that way your body can stay in balance. It's going to be a little bit wacky post-menopause, but you can keep it in balance. And men, same kind of thing. Okay, men should probably try to avoid a lot of soy, but at the end of the day, eat a lot of cruciferous vegetables so you get what's called the DIM to help your body metabolize that estrogen. So broccoli, cauliflower, bok choy, anything cruciferous, consume it. So I hope that these tips have helped you out a lot. Okay, obviously we could go down a million different rabbit holes, and if you have ideas for other videos over 50, I'd love to hear them down below in the comment section. But this should get you a start and get you down the path to getting in the best possible shape of your life on the back half of your life. I'll see you soon.